Call this meeting to order, the Board of Franklin County Commissioners, Wednesday, June 8th, 2022. It's 8:30 a.m. Janet, roll call.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Present.
Commissioner Harris?
Present.
Chair Dunn?
Present.
Vice Chair Dickinson?
Present.
Commissioner Waymire?
Present.
Everybody just stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, with liberty and justice for all.
Everybody be seated, please. Any correspondence?
No, sir.
Public comment, Janet?
Sir.
Okay. Consent agenda.
Your only item is minutes.
Okay. Consider approving the minutes of the meeting for June 1st, 2022. Have a motion. Motion to approve. Second. Yeah.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yeah.
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Chair Dunn?
Yes. Okay, the first item up for business is discuss and consider for approval entering a contract with MoMed Supply for 10 milliliter saline flushes. Christy, tell us all about this.
Good morning. So a couple of months ago, we were faced with a shortage of saline, and that's probably the most used medication that we have on the ambulance at this point. While one of our vendors was able to supply us large bags of it on allocation, I was having difficulty finding the little flushes that attach to an IV catheter. Obviously, we have to have those to be able to give medications and start IVs. After reaching out and using some resources with the state, the Kansas Board, or the Kansas Emergency Medical Services Association, was able to get into an agreement with Savick Buying Group with a particular vendor called MoMed Supplies out of Missouri, and they are willing to provide us, I believe it's 400 syringes every 3 months for the cost of around $260. There may be some variation if shipping costs increase or production costs increase. However, we would have to enter into a contract for 3 years to be able to get that. The expected shortage to clear is going to be about 2 years. So after speaking with Derek, thought it was beneficial that we go ahead and bring it to commission.
Clearly, this isn't a lot of money, but per our purchasing policy, if we're going to enter a contract for over 1 year, we need board approval for that. And because this is 3, technically you need to approve. I think this is a no-brainer. It'll get us the syringes that we need. So.
There's 400 of these in each case, and 400 of these things.
Yeah, in one case, there are 400 of them, yes.
Any other questions of Christy about this? No. Looks like something we need, and looks like in our world this is fairly inexpensive expense. So positive motion to make is to approve the MoMed Supplies contract in the amount of $260 every 3 months for the next 3 years.
So moved.
A second? Second. Yeah.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Chair Dunn?
Yes.
And I'll leave a copy of the contract for you to sign, and I'll just get it after the meeting.
I'm going to sign it right now real quick, or you? Okay. Point your finger. Right here.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And just bill him. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Christie. Okay, Kenny, we at a planning commission did. Do you want to explain it to us?
Sure. The request before you today is a little unique in regards to what has been brought from you or before you compared to what I think the original request was. So to start this process, the applicant, Mr. Barrow, had come in to talk with staff about the possibility of building a new structure on their property that where the logging operation is, just on the southwest side of town, that they wanted to build a new structure to do fumigation in. After we had that meeting, I did a lot of research to try to verify what I could find out for the history of the property, and going back through old zoning regulations to try to find out what uses have been approved and sort of what our records show. The property had always been in more of a commercial district, where the use from my interpretation appears to be more of an industrial and falls under some of the industrial regulations. But they have been in operation there since I think about 2005. And I think he purchased the property just shortly after that as well. So in order for them to sort of build this new structure and to make sure everything was in compliance, what I suggested was it would be best for them to first apply to rezone the property to get it into a proper zoning district that would match the use that's occurring on the property and also what they're proposing to do on the property. They did submit that request, so that was to rezone the property from C2 highway commercial to the I2 heavy industrial district with a special use permit, and the special use permit was primarily for that fumigation business, as it doesn't necessarily fit in to the uses that are listed as permitted in that I2 district. As I kept reviewing the request, I did, and actually drafting the staff report, I came up with another option for them, and that's actually what ended up getting approved by the Planning Commission and is before you today. The main concern was if we rezone the property to I2, then all of those uses that are listed in the I2 district would be permitted on that property in the future. That definitely gave me a little bit of concern, and I think at the Planning Commission meeting they had concern regarding that too, and a few of the neighbors that came up, that was their primary concern with the request. As an option, I suggested that our zoning regulations allow for what is considered a planned development overlay district, and through that portion of the regulations, the county has a little bit more flexibility in that it allows us to cite additional uses that might not normally be permitted in the underlying zoning district, but sort of allow for some other uses and unique situations. And then with that, the applicant would be required to basically file a development plan that usually would have some additional criteria that would try to help mitigate maybe some of those impacts that could be anticipated from those uses that aren't normally allowed in that district. So the Planning Commission ended up approving a zoning of lesser change from what their request originally was. And so basically the property would still retain its existing C2 highway commercial zoning district, but then have this planned development overlay, which would allow for sort of their specific operation to continue. I would note during the Planning Commission's public hearing, Planning Commissioner Livingston noted, and the property owner had noted this to me before, we just couldn't find any documentation on it. When Mr. Livingston was on the city's Planning Commission, when the city had jurisdiction over this property, he remembers this case coming before the city and that their Planning Commission had approved for the use to occur on the property. I don't know, research has been done. We can't find any documentation showing that approval. I've had multiple people tell me that they remember that. And so that was, if we could have found some of that documentation, that might have been able to stop us from having to sort of go through this process. But I would say at this point, we're 99% of the way through. And this would sort of, if the board would decide to approve this request, this would sort of allow for the current business to continue operations, and would allow for them to do this expansion, basically to build a structure to where they would do the fumigation inside of. As part of, as I mentioned, as part of the development plan, there are some additional conditions that are usually attached or can be attached. Those are also listed on the proposed resolution that's attached. The Planning Commission did make a recommendation of some changes from what staff had originally approved or suggested, and I have sort of included some just general notes on that. So originally, I had put in as just sort of a starting place for setbacks that any storage of material should be 50 foot from the front property line, and anything that was basically within 100 foot, then there would be some screening if that was the case. The Planning Commission recommended reducing the 50-foot setback down to 20 foot, and in their opinion, they didn't feel that there was necessarily any screening necessary adjacent to the road right-of-ways. There is still wording in here that any existing screening, primarily concerning the existing tree line on the west side of the property, be maintained so that it wouldn't be removed. And if something does happen to it, then the property owner would need
This fake ad really drive you mad.
It's okay. They would need to replace anything that was maybe destroyed or died, mainly because west of this there are, I think, 3 residential properties. And so just trying to figure out a way that to mitigate that issue of having sort of a transition between commercial industrial uses and the more residential uses.
Did any of those neighbors show up to the Planning Commission meeting?
Yes, we did have a few neighbors that showed up. I don't believe anybody that was directly adjacent to the site attended the meeting, but I think one that was just sort of off one property did show up. Their primary concerns that they expressed, again, were just more the rezoning to I-2 and the uses that would be permitted there. They were actually supportive of the request in general, if there was a way that it could be done with a lesser zoning district that would maybe help control the types of uses that could go on the property in the future.
Would a scrapyard be commercial zoning?
Like a scrapyard, salvage yard, I think is listed in our I-2 district with a special use permit. And I think you can also do it in the A1 district with a special use permit, I think, so.
So I just see similar product in, a little bit of processing, product back out.
Yeah.
Couldn't imagine it being industrial zoning, but.
Yeah.
So the applicant's here, his counsel's here. I assume they've had the opportunity to review this proposed plan. And Keith, I don't want to speak for you, but are you guys okay with this, with what we're proposing? You want to come up and...
So yeah, we're good with the planned overlay district. Basically, the form that this would take changed. You know, originally we were going to do an I-2 with restrictions, and we worked with Mr. Cook to do that. So by the time we got to the Planning Commission, we were on the same page that we were asking for the planned overlay district, and we're agreeable to exactly what he's proposing and what the Planning Commission is recommending, with one small change. It's in paragraph 9, subsection B of the resolution that's in front of you. it says, "No use of the property for log yard or associated and incidental uses shall occur within 20 feet of the property zone for residential and agricultural purposes." We would just like that to expressly exclude entrances and driveways. One of the entrances is located within that 20 feet on the west side of the property. And we just don't want someone to argue that that's an incidental use to this log yard and we can't use that entrance. So that's the only change that we have. Other than that, we agree entirely with what Mr. Cook said.
You say entrances and driveways, is that what you said?
Are you worried about the hedgerows? Of course, we hear a lot about fences and property lines. One neighbor wants to do, one doesn't. Occasionally, a neighbor will want to clear out a hedgerow. Obviously, one of the requirements is for you to maintain the screening.
And
Clearly, it wasn't important to them if they chose to take it out.
yeah, and that, I mean, our client would like those trees to stay. The
Yeah,
only
I think-
portion of them that have been removed were removed by the neighbor. They tore them out to install some kind of a drainage system. So, I mean, I suppose if one of those neighbors tore out the trees on my client's property, that would be a
Well, the
concern.
common line is I didn't,
Yeah, I mean, this isn't exactly it's more brush than it is a hedgerow it's not on the property line, it's on my
Oh, okay.
client's property, so
you wouldn't have any.
hopefully they wouldn't tear them out, but,
I was under the impression it was a fence line.
yeah.
So that does happen.
Unless you guys have any other questions, I think Mr. Cook covered it really well. And just to let you guys know, he worked with us extremely well. He was very accommodating through the process, and he did a really good job. So I know you guys are used to hearing negative things. I just wanted you to hear a positive one, so.
And for those of you who don't know, this is Keith Brock. He's a local attorney here in town. Maybe you all know him, but just for the record.
So on, 9, subsection B, did you want to eliminate that?
No, and Roy, when we read the motion, I will state what the amendment is. The county, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, Kenny, but we don't have any issue adding that language to the resolution. So prior to reading the motion, I will state what that language is so that we can go ahead and approve it today and get this process on down the road. Because the alternative is us going back and amending this and it taking another week, and I'll just read it into the existing resolution.
Okay. Any other questions, okay?
I was just gonna say, just so basically what we have before us is what the applicant wanted. It's just, it also protects us from future use, possible uses is what we're doing.
Absolutely, and that's what the applicant, that's the goal we were trying to accomplish too. We didn't want to do anything that was going to prejudice the neighbors. It's just kind of, you have this use that no one really had any objection to. It's trying to fit it in one of the legal holes that's available, and I think Mr. Cook did a good job of finding a solution that works for
And
him.
my other question was, what do you do with the fumigation?
What do you do with it?
I don't understand
Yeah,
what
yeah,
the
absolutely.
company is, but
Yeah, so,
okay.
so what it is, when you transport materials in interstate commerce and also internationally, you have to fumigate them.
Oh.
You've heard of like the borer beetles that kill the ash trees and
Okay.
things like that, all kinds of pests. So you have to actually fumigate those to kill the pests so that you're not introducing non-native species of bugs that would kill other trees. And so in the summertime, you can do that outside because the bugs they have a high enough respiratory rate that they breathe the gas and they're killed. In the winter, though, they kind of go dormant, and you have to have a heated facility to do that. They use methyl bromide to fumigate them, which is exactly the same substance they use at the auto co-op right here in the middle of the city. Any grain bin that you would use, they fumigate that material too. So it's really just to comply with the regulations to transport the materials outside of the state.
That makes so much more sense. Okay.
Yeah, the fumigation takes place inside the cargo containers, not inside the building itself. Just in the cargo containers.
The building really just provides heat in the wintertime is the main purpose of it.
Any other questions?
No question, but a comment. I probably had 22 years I've been on the planning board in the county. I never seen such a well-organized, both sides, of bringing their case to the planning board. And there was, the reason why there's not a lot of questions up here, there were 2 hours of grilling from the planning board to the applicant and to Mr. Cook. And they did, and it was very, I had a couple people that was sitting out there in the audience tell me that how educated they thought the planning board was in their questions. And, you know, and how they directed them. So both sides, I mean, Mr. Cook and Dan's board, and not before us today was a lot of experts there that night too, that answered a lot of questions that either one of these gentlemen couldn't answer, that they were experts in the field of what they're asking to do. So they both sides did a very thorough background and study of what they needed to do and how to move forward. So I commend both sides.
Any other questions?
I
Derek, would you like to read the
Yeah,
resolution?
I will. You. Basically, and you can go ahead and read the affirmative motion language, Roy, but we are going to approve this resolution 2204-1964 with one change, that change being in section 3, subsection 9, subsection B. We are going to add the language with the exception of entrances and driveways. And now that that is in the record, we will consider that part of the resolution.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the resolution 2204-1964 that's in front of us.
Second.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes?
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Abstain.
Chair Dunn.
Yes.
And you also need them to deny a special use permit, is that right?
Yes, I think that will just sort of tie everything up to finish both of the cases. So I would recommend that the Board of County Commissioners deny the special use permit. Basically, the special use permit was going to be required when it was going to go into the I-2 district, but when we did the plan district, we listed those specific uses as allowed in that plan district. So there's no need for the special use. This would just sort of finalize that, so.
Okay, so this section would lead, I recommend a denial of special use permit application 2204-1965.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire? Yes. Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Abstain.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Chair Dunn.
Yes.
Thanks a lot. And I'd just like to note that I've had a lot of planning cases since I've been doing this. And usually there are a lot of neighbors, or at least one neighbor that's coming out against a request, I mean, no matter what it is. In this case, everybody that came to the planning commission or discussed this with me, we're all very supportive of this request. And I think we're appreciative of all the work that Mr. Barrow does. So everybody felt like he keeps his property very neat and does a good business. So I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that, because I feel like this is somewhat of a rare circumstance from what I typically see, so.
I concur, Kenny. I know Mr. Barrow's business up there, and it's a real tidy business, and he takes care of the property in a very professional manner. And it's almost like a tourist attraction. Go up there and see all the logs laying around and say, man, where the heck's he finding all these logs and stuff? So anyway, I appreciate Dan and his contingency to coming in today and explaining this to us. Thank you for coming in. Okay, our next,
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, yeah, thank you.
here, Dan.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, next order of business, consider approving a proposal from SCS Engineering to complete a property assessment report on the property directly north of the existing landfill in the amount of $30,435. David?
Good morning, Commission. This proposal in front of you today is related to the land that we're in the process of acquiring directly north of our existing landfill site. There's approximately 62 acres there that we would like to analyze to see if it is suitable to include in our current construction and demolition landfill expansion project that we have ongoing. These items are necessary in order to evaluate that land so that we know for sure if it is suitable land to include in any kind of expansion effort that we are undergoing on our current site. It seems to make sense that as we are early in the design phase, that now would be a good time to take a look at that. And if we can incorporate a little bit more of that land into our overall expansion, that's going to add years to the life of that landfill. So this proposal will evaluate those elements to see if it is suitable. We're also looking to see if the soil and material is suitable for cover material, how much is there, that sort of thing. As a part of the effort, we'll know that as well. And so it's quite possible that for the time being, we might be able to use that property as cover material, and then down the road, as we expand out that direction, that we're able to reincorporate that land into the C&D landfill. And so I would just ask for approval to move forward with that so that we can continue the effort here. And I will say, just to update you on the land acquisition, we are currently waiting on the land surveyor to finish up that work so that a description can be prepared that we can then use in closing to formalize that agreement.
Will they evaluate the current use as, I guess, pasture right now? It's a lot of brush.
Yep.
Go up and all that. Will they be evaluating all that?
So they're going to dig some test pits, and they're going to use the soil from that. They're going to test. There's floodplain on some of that. They're going to, if we do an expansion in that area, KDHE is going to want to know if there's wetlands and those sorts of things associated with that property, so they will evaluate that. They'll do some borings to determine the rock depth, depth to water, those sorts of things, similar to what they did on our existing site to be able to figure out where that water table is, because that's a design element in the expansion. They have to know that, and they will also put some additional monitoring wells in through this effort to be able to, as we are doing construction and taking soil, they'll be able to have those monitoring wells to continue to monitor the water quality and those sorts of things that flow through that area underground.
Any questions for David? Affirmative motion would read, I make a motion to approve or proposal from SCS Engineers to complete a property assessment report on the property directly north of the existing landfill, amount of $30,435.
Motion approved.
Second?
Janet?
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson? Chair Dunn.
Yes. Next item is for Janet, I guess. Approval of the resolution waiving the general accepted accounting practices requirements for the 2022, budget, I guess. Okay.
This is something we do every year. We approve that we allowed to do our financial reports on the cash basis, which is within the Kansas statutes. And so this resolution just allows us to not do our financial statements under the GAAP regulations, but under cash basis. It's something we do every year.
Pretty straightforward. Permit a motion to read. I make a motion to adopt the resolution waiving the GAP requirements for the 2022 financial statement.
Motion approved.
Second.
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Chair Dunn.
Yes. We're going to go ahead and run through our staff reports, and we're going to have an executive session afterwards. Derek, will lead us off.
Yeah, thanks, Roy. Just piggyback on what Keith said as well as Don. I feel like, you know, what Kenny was able to accomplish here was really good government. I think when we were hiring Kenny, it was important. It was super important to me. I know it's important to you to hire someone that is willing to work with landowners to accomplish their objective. I mean, we've got rules and regulations. We need to adhere to them. There needs to be a vision. There needs to be a plan. But we also want to work with folks to accomplish their objectives. And Kenny walked that line perfectly. He could have chosen to be an authoritarian and mandated that it be done his way. He didn't do that. He frankly could have been lazy and just not brainstormed for solutions. He didn't do that. What he did was incredibly creative, and I commend him for that. That was a very, very fine job, Kenny. So, yesterday, David and I spent most of the day together. We are kind of putting the finishing touches on recommended pay increases that we've been talking about. Brought David into that because we've seen over and over, David is fantastic with compiling and analyzing data. Had a couple former staff members assist with the compilation of all of that. David refined it, you know, put it on documentation, easy to read, easy to understand. And yesterday, we went through every position in the county and looked at all of the comps from competing governments, including City of Ottawa, Miami County, Osage County, Anderson County, Lynn County, Douglas County, Johnson County. And each of those positions, we have recommendations of placing them in one of three tiers, each tier with a different level of pay increase. So we were able to finish that up. My intention now is to take it to our employee retention committee early next week. And once we get buy-in from that committee, I will put that in the recommended budget. And then the hope is, and Janet might talk about this a little bit, is that on the 20th and 21st, which is not next Monday and Tuesday, it's the Monday and Tuesday after that, that we sit down and have our budget meetings, our annual budget meetings. So we're going to try and do that next week, but we're a little bit behind just on this extra pay stuff. So we tried to kick it back another week. If you might check your calendars, if that doesn't work, then we're not scheduled to have a study session that day, but given that these are our budget meetings. And I think, I see you checking your calendar, some of you, I think that is all that I have today.
Okay. Well, we need to let Derek know about that.
Yeah, you might let Janet know. But yeah, if we can get that, it's the 20th and 21st, right? Yeah, if we can get that locked in, then we'll get the department heads and electeds lined up. And normally what happens, as you all know, is we kind of have a longer first day, and then the second day, it go as long as it takes, but,
Yeah, I can do that.
I don't believe that I have anything else,
I
Roy.
might have a problem on the 21st, but
Okay.
in the afternoon, but
Chair Dunn, if I could just mention, I have the schedule made already, and I had a few people who we had concerns about them being there just because of their work with the county, so like the county attorney and the dispatch director. So I've already got those people kind of in a place where it works for them and their normal everyday duties. And our calendar that we have, barring any other significant changes, looks like we would be done well before noon on Tuesday. So
good.
and what I have mostly scheduled on Tuesday are the things that Derek and I handle, bond and interest, the administration fund, the commissioners fund, all of the unbudgeted funds that we review. So those are the things that we will review on Tuesday, and then have pretty much all the other department heads, with the exception of a couple, would be coming in on Monday. And I believe I have us done by 3:15 on Monday. So,
I'm good with those new dates.
Ron, I'm good. All right with that?
Well, then I would say let's go ahead and lock that in. And the hope would be, and I'll work with Amy and Janet on this, is that, during those individual budget meetings, we can discuss, like with each position, as is applicable, we can discuss like what the recommended increase would be and show you the data and how we got there and just walk through that so that it's crystal clear and completely transparent. I'll tell you, and you guys know this, commodities are getting more expensive, services are getting more expensive, and then the county's most valuable resource asset are people, and people are getting more expensive, and we've seen that happen all around us. So, and that's why we're working hard to find as many efficiencies as we can. Like, we're trying to prune areas that we feel like can be pruned so that we can take care of the personnel that we have. And so I'm looking forward to those meetings, looking forward to your engagement, and hope that there are lots of questions, because certainly we like answering questions. So that's all I have. Thanks, Roy.
Okay, thanks, Derek. Pat, come on up.
Good morning, Commissioners.
What is-
Hand this out real quick. Sign it.
Thanks.
Okay.
Sure. Okay, what we're doing, Southeast Kansas Weed Director Association, we're also in charge of the Southeast Kansas Weed Management Association, and we put on a yearly meeting. We are comprised of 19 different counties in the southeast part of Kansas, and this year I'm hosting a meeting next Wednesday night up here for the weed management area. It's a producers meeting. I've got several good sponsors on here, RC&D, Van Dies Auto Co-op, the AgriLiquid, which is Max Performance Ag, and then Superior Ag Services, and then, of course, Franklin County's through the Noxious Weed Department as well. Just want to invite everybody to come out to it. Like I say, it's next Wednesday night, 6 o'clock. We're going to have supper and a couple speakers, including myself. And then I've got from K-State Research and Extension, Sarah Lancaster coming to talk. She's going to talk either about Sericea lespedeza or Johnson grass, or she might touch them both. I'm personally going to talk a little bit about teasel and what kind of things are working up here for us. So I just want to put an invitation out to everybody, and just let me know by Friday if you plan on coming. So,
Thank you, Pat.
thank you.
Commissioner Dunn, before Pat gets out of there, can I talk about some chemicals while he's still here and handy? So,
Talk about thistles?
Chemicals.
chemicals.
Yeah.
So, last week we came before you asking for approval to go forward with a purchase of a chemical that we had previously bid earlier in the year. We are, and I think we mentioned last week, that we are starting to see these chemical suppliers only honoring their prices up to 7 days, which makes it
That's one way to kill a person.
It is.
that makes it difficult for us to follow normal protocols in getting soliciting bids and getting those bids back, and then getting approval from you all on either side of that to go out for bids and to approve those bids. By the time we go through that process, the time has elapsed and those bids are no longer good. We are going to ask for an exception to our normal process just for the chemicals. And what we would like is the authority to, we would still solicit bids from our normal suppliers like we always do, but we would like approval to anything under $20,000 to solicit those bids and get approval from Derek, rather than having to run through the commission to be able to get that. That gives us a little bit more flexibility. We would only use that if we absolutely had to. We've had some rather large chemical sales this year that have, it's made our normal process, what we usually anticipate for chemical sales, we're not able to judge that because we've got a new business in the community that is buying large quantities of chemicals from us that's thrown off our inventories and what we planned for. And so,
And that applicator, I mean, he knows, and they're being applied, it's a custom applicator, and they are being applied in Franklin County.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've had this good heart-to-heart discussion. I told him, I said, I don't have a problem in the world with it, but it's staying here in Franklin County, and they are. So, I mean, instead of having, say, for example, you five come in and get your chemical for yours, I'm having one person come in at 5 to get five chemical at one time now. And so it kind of throws everything out of kilter as far as quantities on hand.
this particular process that we're asking for, the only difference is that we would run through Derek. We would still get the bids. We would still solicit from our normal vendors. All of those things would occur. We're just trying to shorten the time frame so that we can react within that 7-day time period to be able to get the lowest price possible for the chemicals that we need when we need them.
Because like last week's example, really the one thing that made me nervous was like last week, we were actually on day 8, and by the time he got back with me, it was day 9 on that bid. He honored it, we were fine, but that just makes me nervous.
Yeah.
I mean, I get approved for this and it ends up being this, and it's just not a good situation right now.
And the exception, and David laid it out well, the exception would be limited to chemical purchases. And I can go clear back to, I remember in March of 2020, right as the pandemic was starting, I had a meeting with my leadership team and just said then, like, this is going to require us to be incredibly flexible. I mean, we might have to do things differently, and this is still, I think, a byproduct of the pandemic and everything that's come since that. So this is just yet another exception. These are times we've never been in before, and we just need flexibility.
And I think a lot more of it too, I mean, we're having a lot more sales early in the season is because we're wet. Where now we also have that opportunity for an aerial applicator in the area. So, I mean, you can, if it's muddy, you can still spray with a chopper coming through. Where the ground crews, they're pretty well dried up, or hold up. So like I say, I think my sales will slow down towards the end of the year. I think we're seeing a lot of the bulk buying early because they can do it now. Well, they're gonna start farming here before too long, once it dries up.
Also, they probably think it's gonna go up, which it probably is.
And it has.
Yeah, so
It has.
buy it now because you never
Yeah.
know what the price is gonna be later.
Right.
Any issues with that? I don't know
Well, I
that.
just want, like Pat said, I wouldn't want to see a black market on chemicals, somebody buying up all our chemicals
And that's,
reselling them.
right, and they're not. I mean, that's one thing, like I said, I mean, it's cut and dry, and, I mean, we're very, I mean, I know both a couple of the co-owners here, that they're, you know, and I'm in good communication with them, and they're in good communication with me, and, I mean, they're staying here in Franklin County, so I'm not hesitant about selling it to them, you know, but, you know, later on, we're just gonna keep monitoring it still, just for that reason, you know, just so they're not hoarding it.
And these are, you know, the payment that we get for selling these chemicals helps offset any expense that we have in attaining the chemicals.
Yeah, we're not using property tax dollars.
Yes, sir. That's
Correct.
Want a motion to make an exception?
Yeah,
In the purchasing policy for the noxious weed department, for the purchase of chemicals,
In an
up to
amount of,
$20,000 to be approved by the administrator.
Sounds like a motion.
Second?
Yeah?
Commissioner Stottlemyre?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Waymire?
Yes.
Chair Dunn.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yep,
Commissioners.
thank you, appreciate it.
Christie, any more? Kenny? Any more? Okay, come on.
I just wanted to give the board a quick update. We have had a complaint that's come in from a lot of property owners. So at Labette Terrace and Nebraska Road, we have a property owner that my understanding is about a year ago did some work on his dam spillway, and might have done some things that have caused that pond to back up further than what it did before. With the rainy weather that we've had this spring, that pond has basically been, I think over the last couple weeks at least, stayed over Labette Terrace, and so people cannot actually drive through that area. The road is underwater. The water is also backing up a little bit more onto some of the other adjoining tracts of land. I have reached out to that property owner, requesting that he come in and talk with me. That project should have probably gotten a floodplain development permit. There's also some permits from the state of Kansas and the Army Corps of Engineers that probably should have also been done as part of that process. And so we have reached out to him. I haven't been contacted back yet, but we're hoping here in the next week or so that he'll get back in touch with us so that we can sort of start that process. And I've even had some contact with the state of Kansas Division of Water Resources, and I think they're aware of the complaints that have been made in regards to this, and I'll work with trying to get them in touch with them. I think probably the difficulty here is, I think at this point in time, I mean, everything is wet. It's probably not going to be a easy solution. You know, they're not going to be able to get equipment out there right now. So we're probably going to be dealing with this for a little bit of time until the water goes down, until things dry out, and then hopefully we'll be able to come up with a solution that will hopefully stop this from happening in the future. So I don't know if anybody has any questions in regards to that, or?
Commissioners, I would add that we have been out to take a look at the road. We don't believe that there's anything in the road right away on Labette Terrace or at the other end on the outflow side on Marshall Road that is affecting the situation. The outflow along Marshall is fine. It's working properly. The water, when there's a small bridge on Labette Terrace, the bridge is out of the water, but the road just on the west side of it is underwater and has been underwater for probably a week at least now, and it's gone underwater a couple of other times when we've had some rainfall that you know, a couple inches at a time. And so this is an area of floodplain, But, so we expect it to flood during those heavy rains, but this is almost standing water. It's backup water that can't get away. And so I think we assume that the situation is related to the pond dam and so forth.
The only question I had was, so this happened about a year ago, but it was brought to our attention, your attention, when were you first aware of it?
Just within the last month,
That's what I thought.
yeah. So
Even though
the,
it's been ongoing, we have not been aware of it until the last month, so.
that is correct.
Yeah, and I know a few people have expressed concern and that they would like for the county, I think, to address the situation fixed now, but because the dam is on private property, we are, don't have the ability to go on there and fix that. But, we will try to work with them as quickly as we can to try to get it addressed, but.
Yeah, it looks like they just need to lower their spillway.
And I think that is probably one of the main issues. I think there's a pipe that maybe also got elevated a little bit more than what it was. And so I think even when it's not going over the spillway, the level's staying up a little bit higher than what it used to, is my understanding, so.
I know you probably can't go back in the records far enough, but my understanding, this happened about 30 years ago too.
Yeah.
And somebody made a county, state, whoever, and they did have to lower it back down. So I don't know where those records lie.
We've been made aware of that particular situation that occurred in the past, but to our knowledge, there aren't any records to that effect, but it's.
We don't have out there like we have on other flooded areas where it's marked or flashing lights or anything like that either.
No, I put some small barricades on either side of it. Those have, of course, been stolen already or thrown in the creek, but we have notified our EMS and the sheriff's office and everybody that needs to know that section of road is underwater. They have been notified. Our road closed map has been updated with that information, so the emergency personnel are aware that we've got an issue there.
And we'll let somebody else smarter than us determine the findings and what they need to do. But it seems to me it's not a running water, it's a standing water.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's running water, I wouldn't be as much concerned as it is that it's a standing water and backing up in people's yards and ditches on down the other direction.
Like I said, it is a floodplain area, but we shouldn't be having the standing water with this situation. It should be able to pass through virtually unobstructed.
Well, I appreciate both of your work on this situation and the fact that you're going through it legally. I mean, and sometimes anybody that works with the government knows it doesn't go as fast as you want, unfortunately, but it's the way you have to do it to make it.
I'm glad you got something going on, because I did get a call on that the other day, so that helps.
We have taken numerous calls.
Yes. Numerous calls and personal meetings,
Yes.
so.
And rightfully so,
Yes.
rightfully so.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Dustin, Kyle? David?
Back to you, okay. So from a work standpoint, our road and bridge crews are working on the spots around the county that have been impacted by the rainy weather. We've got some soft shoulders and some pipes that have failed on us. We have been able to replace a couple of those crossroad tubes, one of them at Riley west of Ohio Terrace. And we've also been able to put in a few entrances kind of in between rain showers and whatnot. So once it quits raining on us, we'll get back after those crossroad tubes and get our roads shaped up. On Friday, Pat and I have a meeting scheduled with the Hams Landfill management folks. I have never been up there to visit with them. They are the company that comes to our transfer station and swaps out trailers. They have, and I think I mentioned this last week, they've been hit with staffing issues and repair issues on their trucks, just like we have. Pat and I are going to go up and visit with them, find out a little bit more about their operation, and talk about some of the things that we have kind of underway to see if we can find some solutions to the issues. The problems that are plaguing our landfill, our transfer station rather, are similar to other transfer stations around. We've been in gathering information for this landfill fee study that I've mentioned. We've talked to them about, you know, who's taking your trash and where's it going, what trouble you're having, that sort of thing. They're reporting similar issues as well. And so hopefully on Friday we can come back with a little bit more understanding, and any findings that we have that come from that will be reported in the landfill fee report that I'm putting together for you all. Really the last thing that I want to visit about, and Derek mentioned it a little bit ago, is we're paying more for fuel, obviously. The last load of diesel that we got is costing us $4.20 a gallon. That's up from $2.56 about this time a year ago. Unleaded is $3.45, which is, it was $2.31 about a year ago. Obviously, folks are paying a lot more than that at the pump, so I'm thankful for that. But we don't budget at $4.20 a gallon for diesel and $3.45 for unleaded. That's throwing everything out of whack. You combine that with the increases in commodity prices. All of the quarries have added fuel surcharges up to $1 per ton for material that we take. That is happening across the board. The folks that we use for disposing of our tires, on their last bill, they had a 30% fuel surcharge. 30% of the cost that they charge us. So they charge us that, and then 30% of that they're adding to it, and it's directly related to fuel. So we're seeing that across the board. I'm sure the other departments are seeing similar things. I think, you know, Public Works and Solid Waste, we probably deal with that maybe more so than anybody else, but it is a concern. We are monitoring our budget and trying to, we're always frugal, but we're trying to even be more so due to these costs. I don't think we're done seeing price increases, and I'm not sure that there's going to be any relief anytime soon. So just making you aware of kind of what we're looking at and what we're dealing with on a daily and weekly basis. That's all the good news I have.
Well, we might have to look at tipping fees to kind of offset some of that.
That is exactly what this, I've already acquired a great deal of information. We have a few more sources I need to gather, and then I'll put it together and present it to you. But we'll be looking at our tipping fees in the transfer station, C&D fees, tire disposal fees. All of that will be part of the conversation, and we'll have some other things to consider that other landfills do. But we'll put it all together and we'll have a discussion about it and kind of chart a path forward for us.
And I would say that, Roy, we're not just going to do that in Public Works. We've got multiple departments. The health department's going to be in front of you soon talking about their fees. Our fees in planning and zoning are laughably low. Like we're going to need to look at that across the board. And I think we've proven, to get to your point about, you know, rising costs, yeah. I think we've proven that we're fiscally responsible, but we don't have magic wands. I mean, we don't. I think expectations for governments, maybe especially ours, can be unrealistic sometimes. Like we are paying what we're paying, and this was unexpected. So I know we're being as frugal as we can be, but just know come budget meeting time, there's some things that are just gonna have to go up. And what we can do is try to offer some things back and say, here's some reductions you can make, but it's unavoidable. Like, you think about this revenue neutral, like, you show me a government that can stay revenue neutral and actually do it, like, I would be shocked right now, so.
Thank you, Dave. Shannon?
Well, Derek made a really great segue, just a couple things that I wanted to talk about. The first thing is your budget books, getting those to you. As Derek mentioned earlier, they're finalizing some modifications to our employee pay, and it would not make sense in any sense fiscally or workload-wise to prepare your budget books without that information in it. So we may not be able to give you as much time to review the books in advance that we would like to give you. Usually we try to give you at least a week to review it before we have the study sessions. But reviewing all the data and everything is really important to get you the best product. So we're comfortable with what we're providing you when we get that to you. So I'll be communicating with you, letting you know what we're looking at. Like Derek said, we want the retention committee to look at these wage adjustments before we put them into the workbooks. And the workbooks, as you know, is what goes into your large book that we prepare for you guys, and what the department heads discuss with you when they come for their budget meetings. So I would not expect to get those to you until at least next Wednesday, and it may be a little bit later than that, depending on when we have the employee retention meeting. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I completed all the county valuations this week. I'm waiting on the state to finalize all of our valuations and approve them all, but I did get all of the valuations out to all of the county taxing entities. So all of the school districts received their, if they have not received their information, I'm still waiting on other counties to give me information. Some of our neighboring counties are not done yet. So all the school districts that are completely in Franklin County have received theirs. All the cities have received theirs. So I'm still working on finalizing some of those that touch into other counties. So that all happened this week. On the election side, we're still really working on redistricting. As you guys know, you got approved a change last week that was in a result of redistricting. Everyone in our county will have a change in what they vote for, because everyone will be moving from the 2nd Commission District to the 3rd. And additionally, there are a lot of other changes that are happening too. And we're going through verifying all of our lines, making sure that everyone, if they, like the situation last week, if they've been annexed in, that everything is reported correctly. And that's a lot of work for us. So as a result of that, we are going to do a mailing to every registered voter in Franklin County to make sure that everyone knows where they're supposed to be going to vote, what they're voting on. And it also achieves another thing for us, which is the cleanup of our voter rolls to get people off who've moved out of the county. It sets that process in motion for us. So it's going to be quite an expense in the election budget. I think that we can absorb that in the election budget. But it's something we really felt like we needed to make happen this year, especially with the redistricting process. That only happens once every 10 years, so it's just really responsible to do our due diligence and get everything cleaned up. So that'll be a large mailing that we're going to send out. The last thing I'll touch on is the Senate Bill 13, the new tax law that went into effect last year. This year will be the first year we have to send out those mailings. So we're going to, I've been working with some vendors who do mailings. As you know, we have one that sends out our tax statements. So I've worked with Jody with her contacts to get a quote from them, and I've got a couple of other quotes that we're reviewing and getting feedback from the vendors on. From what we're seeing on getting those quotes, the cost to have someone, to outsource our mailing is likely going to be very close to what it would actually cost us to do it in-house. And save us a ton of staffing time. So I just really don't know how, with the redistricting and everything and the election coming up, that we would be able to accomplish that mailing with the staff that I have without drawing in other people. So we're gonna be reviewing those in the coming week and bringing that to you next week to vote on, because that mailing could potentially push over $10,000. I will say that we will get reimbursed these first 2 years for that mailing. And we really don't know how many taxing entities at this time are going to exceed the revenue neutral rate. But like Derek talked about with our staffing costs and things that are out of our control, like fuel, it would be irresponsible at this time for me to say that the county is not going to exceed the revenue neutral rate. So I would answer any questions that you have about any of those things.
On the primary, is there going to be any special questions on the ballot?
Absolutely. I've been getting a lot of questions about that. There will be a constitutional amendment question on that ballot. As you know, usually in a primary, only Republicans and Democrats would vote in a primary unless a unaffiliated voter wanted to affiliate with a party at that time. But there will be a ballot for everyone at this election. So if you are voting in a party primary, you would have your party primary races on the ballot, and then you would have the question. If you are not going to vote in a party primary, you would have unaffiliated ballot that would just have that question on it. So there will be a ballot for everyone at the August 2nd primary.
And what is that question? Briefly.
It's an abortion amendment, and it is what I'm told it's called is value them both. That's what I'm being
People
told.
need to read up on it. And
Definitely
study
need
it.
to read up on it. There's signs going up all over town that have some different points of view on it. So I think there's various different websites that you could go to. I do have the question as it will read on your ballot. So if people want to see that, I can get that for them.
So the sheriff's amendment, is that in November then?
It's my understanding that's going to be on the November ballot.
Thank you, Janet. Anybody else out there have anything? Okay, Don, you want to start us off?
I did go to Landfill meeting the other night. That not a lot of things on the agenda. They do have a new clerk now, so you might, you already know that. They not going to have their fireworks display this year at the Landfill Days. Charges went from $3,000 down to $6,000, the cheapest they can find. So they've decided not to go forward. They're going to go ahead and have the Landfill Days. They'll have games and stuff and in the park for the kids, and have a dinner that night downtown in the community center. So they're still to try and move forward the best they can with the circumstances they can. Everybody can say what they want. This fuel deal, I'm thinking about a year ago, but who knows? Nobody knows. You're just guessing. But then my thoughts a year ago, probably should have went a little more on allowance. So you could always back off. We don't have to use it just because we got it. And then I did mention to David here a while back that what our possibilities is past that time now probably. What our possibilities was on the capacity. Maybe there's some way we could have more storage. Yeah, we don't need it, but yeah, can we hold it long enough that we still beat the way, just like you said, with the increases not guaranteeing 7 days on that. I can remember not too many years ago, it was the same way with steel, with trailers. You'd order a trailer, stock trailer or whatever, they'd only guarantee the bid for 10 days. And that's kind of easy because you're working between dealers. But David, your problem, how do you turn that around and get back to us, to guarantee anything like that, and did enjoy going out to, sure the others will talk about it too, but they're going out to Kelmar the other day and hearing the big expansion they're planning on doing. I think all their employees are excited about it too, and community on that they've chosen to stay here. There's always been the rumors all these years, leaving town, and they've proven over the years that they're not, and that they're just continually growing and growing. And I think they're moving. My opinion is they're moving a lot of the work they have other places to here versus going the other way around. So that's fortunate for us. That's all I got.
Okay. Diane?
I went to the Chamber Coffee last Friday at Hope House. The new facility that they have there, it was actually, they had it open before, but this is their ribbon cutting, and their new facility is so far and above what they had before, the things that they can do with it. And there was a nice turnout for that. I did go to the Kalmar announcement, and they're talking about 60 to 80 new jobs, doubling production eventually. It's exciting. What they're doing, they're going to bring back the electric vehicle. That makes total sense with the market it is right now, but what they are producing is in demand, and so their company wants them to do it as quickly as possible. They're talking about the actual building part to be done by the end of the year, so they're putting it on fast forward. I went to the City of Princeton meeting on Monday. There wasn't really any new that they discussed. And then the last thing is Franklin County is part of the 4th Judicial District, and there was an administrative order signed on April 15th that actually is going to provide an additional magistrate judge, and I'm a part of that committee, so we will start looking to appoint a new magistrate judge probably sometime this summer by the time we get done. But, so if anybody, and a magistrate is somebody that doesn't have to have a law degree, so if you're interested, or if you know somebody that's interested, in touch. But anyway, that's what's going on.
Okay. Yeah, I went to Hope House there last Friday for the coffee, and really an improvement over their previous location down the old Presbyterian Church on Walnut Street. Went to, or attended FCDC meeting on Zoom yesterday. I couldn't hardly hear him. I was having difficulty even hearing what was going on, and I wish Paul would have been here today to tell us what happened there. So I think the biggest thing was an agreement with Wichita State to do studies on, I think it was labor or what there,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, they're working to put a new labor shed study together, and we talked about if we wanted to use a private vendor for that or Wichita State. So those discussions are ongoing. That was basically it. I'm just like you, Roy. I did not have good audio on that meeting, so. But Paul is up in Wellsville today having meetings, so, but I suspect he'll be here next week for an update.
I think it'd be best just to wait till Paul gets back here that we could get an update from Paul.
Yeah.
That's all I have. I now entertain a motion to go to executive
I make
session.
one thing, Roy. It kind of made me back, I forgot about Kelmar deal. I can remember people talking, they was pushing to get 3 a day. And my wife was talking to some employees out there while we were there. They're up to 20 a day.
Wow.
And if you're talking double, you're talking possibly upper 30s a day trucks out there. That's just amazing.
It is amazing.
That's amazing. That's all I got.
So Roy, the executive session would be to meet on a legally privileged matter under the COMA exception, allowing for consultations between the county commissioners and the county councilor for a period of 10 minutes. And that would include the 5 county commissioners as well as the county councilor.
Okay, we've heard what the motion needs to be. We have
Make a motion to go into executive session?
Second. All those in favor say
Aye.
yes. Let's just take a 5-minute recess real quick. 5 minutes recess,
Okay, so go in at 9:50.
9:50.
Yeah.
Okay. Second. We're adjourned.